chaos is continuing in Portland, and it just got worse. Man in Patriot prayer hat is shot dead in Portland during violent clashes between Trump supporters and BLM. Chaos on the 95th night of unrest after a caravan of 600 cars waving MAGA flags drove into the city and confronted protesters. One person was shot dead on Saturday night in Portland as Trump supporters clashed with BLM activists. The man was wearing a Patriot Prayer baseball cap, suggesting he was a supporter of the far-right group. Fans of the president had gathered in Clackamas on Saturday afternoon to cruise around Portland. They were met by Black Lives Matter activists, leading to scuffles, arguments, and pepper spray being used. Saturday night marked the 95th straight night of unrest in the Oregon City. Trump supporters across the country were out on Saturday afternoon showing their backing for the president. BLM activists also rallied in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Jacob Blake was shot on August 23rd. Trump is set to visit Kenosha on Tuesday to meet with law enforcement and survey damage from riots. In Washington, D.C., tear gas was used to push protesters away from the White House. Okay, so this was, another recent shooting that happened. And then, of course, before that, you had, another one where the 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who was like a big Blue Lives Matter supporter, was open carrying, and he ended up killing, I believe it was multiple people, but I'm not sure. But what I'm seeing now, guys, in the wake of all of these shootings is that it's nonstop dissecting of who's in the right, who's in the wrong, why not. I saw it in the wake of the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. I saw it in the wake of this one. Some people are saying, hey, the right-winger who got shot was macing a left-winger, so the left-winger was doing it in self-defense. Back with the Kyle Rittenhouse one, I saw similar arguments of like, well, he was being chased. Apparently, he shot somebody, and then he ran away. People were chasing him because he shot somebody, and then he was like, he got hit to the ground or something, and then he shot after he was chased. So, there, again, big debates going on as to whether or not the shooting constitutes self-defense or not. This one here, exact same conversation is happening. And, I mean, I don't know how much wisdom I have to add to this conversation, other than to say, this is the ultimate culmination of the culture war becoming real life in the starkest way. See, when you have the Black Lives Matter activists out there and you have the hardcore MAGA people out there, and by the way, I've seen the pictures and the videos of the caravan coming in. Man, you're not going to convince me that the 600 cars of people waving the MAGA flags going to Portland, Oregon, when they know that there's unrest there, you're not going to convince me that they're not looking for trouble. Because they are. They absolutely are. Why would you go to a place that is now getting a reputation as like lawless left-wing hooligans, running the streets, unacceptable, and then they come, and I have no doubt that in their own mind they think, well, we're going to bring law and order. But no, you're going to add to the lack of law and order. You're going to bring mayhem and chaos. And that, honestly, is exactly like Trump himself, where he tries to act like, oh, Joe Biden's the candidate who's against law and order. But my dude, you just did the thing not too long ago where you said, I'm going to deploy the U.S. military on our own streets, invoke the Insurrection Act, and then you gassed peaceful protesters and did a photo op with a Bible in front of a church. You know what that is? That's the opposite of law and order and stability. That's you adding to the chaos. That's you pouring fuel on the fire. Step in the, 600 car MAGA caravan. Of course that's going to add to the mayhem. Of course that's going to add to the chaos. I got to tell you guys, we're honestly lucky that there's only been 2 high-profile shootings recently. It could get way, 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 way worse. And I do think that at this point, this has become a magnet for the most fringe people in the entire country. That's what's happening. It's become a magnet for the most fringe people in the entire country. And this is something to actually fear. The degree of the fighting in the streets. How bad is it going to get? How much can happen? How much longer can this go on? How many people are going to get involved? because this is a level of anger, vitriol, and partisanship that I think is honestly the worst in my lifetime, for sure. And you have to say it, everything is exacerbating it. Everything is exacerbating it. Like, when cops all the time end up killing unarmed black people, that of course is going to lead to social unrest. When Trump is out there being ruthlessly partisan and basically saying Democrats hate America and they want to take down the country, that's going to fire up his base and make them, incredibly closed-minded and intolerant of those who disagree. And then when you add on top of it all, and I really think this is the cherry on top, which maybe is most responsible for fueling this all, that the country's falling apart, man. The country's falling apart. The economy is a mess. We're effectively in a depression. We have 20% real unemployment. That's going on. You have COVID. And, keep it real, even though the lockdowns were necessary to some extent, the fact that we had the lockdowns 1,000,000% exacerbated people's psychological and mental illnesses. And so you have the entire country falling apart. You have people with no purpose, no meaning, no structure in their lives. And then now it's all coming to a head in the most movie-like ways, honestly. You literally have, people in the streets wearing the masks, walking around with weapons, the MAGA people riding into town acting like they're going to save the day when they're just going to exacerbate the problem. And, I don't see any real end in sight. I don't. I know it sounds corny. I know it sounds cliche. I know it sounds silly almost, but for the love of God, everybody needs to pump their brakes. Everybody needs to reel it in a little bit. That's easier said than done. I'm talking to you guys from a comfy air-conditioned studio. So in some ways, you could flip it right on me and say, what the hell does this guy know? Hey, man, shut the hell up. You're not directly involved with any of this stuff. I do know that increasing sectarianism only leads to devastating consequences. And it's not like the U.S. is magically exempt from what we've seen historically everywhere else. Do you need to bring up the Rwanda example, the Hutu and the Tutsis? I know you could say, well, that we're not there yet. Right, but we're on the road. We're on the road. I think everybody's got to pump their brakes. Everybody's got to reel it in. We have to take a couple deep breaths. And what's happening is everybody's turned on their fellow Americans. And the political divides, ideological divides have become so strident that people are so ossified in their worldview and their beliefs that there's no giving of even an inch. And honestly, this just gets in the way of people recognizing who the real crooks are and who's really screwing you. You guys know my view on it, and we talk about it all the time on this show, but you have a system where corporations and the billionaires and the wealthy effectively own the politicians and run the government and get whatever they want implemented into law. And then you get left behind. Working people get left behind. That's a working person who's on the right, and that's a working person who's on the left. And instead of uniting, diagnosing the problem, understanding the problem, and pushing for the solutions where we do have power in numbers to get that done, instead of doing that, everybody's turning on each other. Everybody's turning on each other. And there's really clear, dividing lines when it comes to race, when it comes to ideology. And we'll never get our act together if we can't take a few deep breaths, pump our brakes, look at this situation objectively. Because we've already had it. We've had situations where left-wingers get killed. We have situations where right-wingers get killed. We have, chaos and sort of leaderless anarchy happening in multiple places. none of that is going to bring about the solutions that we really need. There are ways to get the solutions, but first we have to agree on the problem and then organize and strategize to get to the solutions. And we're so far away from that at the moment. And all I see is people will continue to harden themselves in their stance. And I don't think the future of this country at the moment is bright. And I think that this is the real culmination of a lot of terrible trends in society. It's all unraveling in front of us. So I take no joy in it. I take no pleasure in it. And I want to try to do everything I can to prevent it from getting worse. But, who knows how successful we'll be.